Hello there, I'm Mal, and welcome to my Master of Orion news update. So today, November 1st of 2016, we have the arrival, just in time for the 20th anniversary of Master of Orion II, a pretty big patch from the new Master of Orion team, dubbed version 51.2. The main highlights include mod support, which is welcomed by the player base, new pollution and gravity mechanics, improved AI, and a new interface for tactical battles. So the question is, how well are these new elements implemented into this game via the new patch? And we're going to take a look at that in detail. So sit back, relax, and let's get into this. So now we have modding support in Master of Orion, which I think is great, and the devs had talked about this all the way back in the early access phases. Now, I haven't had enough time to look at exactly what you're capable of doing, but based on the patch notes, pretty much all of the in-game variables have been made available and using a program like Notepad++, which I'll put a link in the description of the video if you want to go grab that program, make it easier for you if you want to mess around with things. Just be careful what you do. Anyway, it looks like you can change just about every variable in the game. So it'll be interesting to see what people come up with in the coming days and weeks. But I have to say that I'm excited about this, and I think the player base, certainly welcomes this mod support. So like most games with Steam Workshop support, you would go into Steam, you would go to the workshop for Master of Orion, subscribe to the mods that you're interested in, and then when you launch Master of Orion from the front screen, you can check to make sure that those are working by clicking on mods. It'll list the mods that you have. By default, they're active, so you can either deactivate them or you can remove them from this screen as well. Now, on the Steam Workshop, there's not a whole lot of mods available yet. Now, again, I'm recording this the same day that the patch is released, so that kind of makes sense. But I'm looking forward, like I said, to what's coming in the days and weeks and months ahead. And I would imagine, just based on the fact that within 24 hours, we've already got some things showing up, that mod creators are going to get pretty active about it. If I knew more about actually editing, code and what have you, I would love to do it. As a matter of fact, if there's any modders out there that wouldn't mind collaborating with somebody, I can certainly help design some things. So if you're interested, let me know in the comments below. I'd appreciate that. All right, so moving on here. All right, so let's talk about another major change in the patch, which is how pollution is handled. In the past, what would happen is you would, based on the biome of the planet and what your pollution was, you would build up said pollution. You would reach essentially a hard cap, and then you had to clean up the planet by utilizing industry. And once you did that, you were able to then safely go back to producing goods and services and what have you. Now, after the patch, the way it works is you have essentially what I'm going to call a target number, as you can see here. And you have the turn cycle pollution, positive or negative, of that number. And you want to keep it below that threshold. So now you get a flat pollution reduction for the technology that you research and the buildings that you produce. So, 5 for a atmospheric renewer, 5 for a toxic processor, and then of course much later in the tree, you can get a reduction of 100 for using a deep core waste dump. Now, it's important to note that if you have enough industry, and depending on how many people, your population, how many people you dump into that, you could still exceed the tech that you have. It used to be that you would run up to the in-game tech, put in a waste dump, and then you never had to worry about it before. I don't think that's the way it's going to play out anymore. And I think that this system might seem a little bit cumbersome to people that have played before this patch. Having said that, I think that it's easier to understand for people that are picking up the game now. And I think overall the mechanic will prove to be a good change, at least after the time I've spent with it. That seems to be the case. And I'll probably do like a separate little tiny mini guide about how pollution works after the patch, just in case people have additional questions. But I think it's a good change. Again, I think for people new coming in, that they won't know any different, and it's easier to interpret the information, and I think they'll have therefore an easier time dealing with the mechanic. As far as for those of us that have been playing this game for a while, in my case for months and months, it is going to take a little bit of adjustment, but again, I think it's a good change. So in addition to changing the pollution mechanic, they've also changed how gravity works, and they've made it more like Master of Orion II. So as an example, and the race that's impacted the most are the Cylons. They start with low gravity, which is now considered a negative trait. And not only do they have deficiencies when they're trying to operate on normal or heavy gravity worlds, but in addition to that, they can only colonize low gravity worlds from the start until they get requisite tech. So that's a pretty big impact to them, and just based on looking at the forums and the subreddit and some other places, it seems like people are finding that there's not a whole lot of habitable worlds for the Cylons on initial colonization. Now, I did a test run and I didn't run into that problem, but people are reporting that, so it might need some adjustment. And it makes sense for the Cylons. Now, to compensate them, they have changed the research bonus of creative to 50%, which is significant. But the part I'm a little bit fuzzy on is what they've done with the Balrathi, because they have high G tolerance, but seemingly have a penalty on normal worlds. I need to test that, but I hope that that's not the case, because that wouldn't make any sense at all. And if you're trying to mirror what happened in Master of Orion II, then what if you had high G, then not only did they get inherent combat bonuses for it, but they could inhabit both high G worlds and normal worlds with no malice whatsoever. I mean, that was the whole point. So I hope I'm wrong about that. I need to double check that. But in any case, those are the major changes to gravity in this patch. So another item here is improved AI, and what I would say is, based on the time I've played thus far, it is easier to get relationships established with the AI. They're more willing to deal. They don't seem to backstab as much, though I need to substantiate that with more hours on the new version before I can really substantiate that claim. These are initial impressions. However, something that I have noticed, and I have tested on various difficulties from, normal to hard to extreme, is that some of the shenanigans that the AI always pulled continues to pull, which means, command point cap is really just sort of a guideline for the AI. At least that's what it seems like to me. The amount that they're able to build in time allotted doesn't match up. Like, you can't have, for example, 12 frigates in under 18 turns when you only have one colony. Like, even the best production races in the game can't pull that off. So, and I know what you're saying. Well, wait a minute, but on higher difficulties they get bonuses. That's true, but that was on normal. So why would that be the case? So it might have just been a fluke. Maybe again, this is just an initial impression based on testing. I could be wrong, but I am concerned. All right, with that said, let's move on to the last piece, which is the new tactical UI. Now, not only is it cleaner and I think easier to access different formations, but now you can actually hold fire if you want to. And the reason that would be important is, let's say you've got a target that's wounded or a target that's not going to require that much damage. Since weapons cycle in Master of Orion and they have a timer on them, essentially, if you could hold back, say, I don't know, a large salvo of missiles or something like that for a better, juicier target, so to speak, then you could just disable that particular weapon slot and finish off the smaller target with other weapon systems, which I think is going to add kind of a cool new element to the game. But let's take a look at a sample fight and just check out the changes. Alright, so that pretty much wraps up our update video. Now, I did want to let you know that while I think there are some interesting and good changes in this patch, there are some things that I was expecting to see that aren't in the patch. And I've actually already contacted the development team and ask them a few questions and follow-ups about when or if we're going to see these types of additions. And I'm going to put a link here on the screen for a discussion video that, while it's not out today, will be out later today or tomorrow. And I plan on having some of my YouTube collaborators join me on that, other people that are familiar with Master of Orion. So it's a good chance it'll be a multi-person discussion about not only this update, but about things that we would all like to see come into the game. And I've said this before, I am an admitted Master of Orion fanboy and of this reboot, and I want it to do well. I want to see the game grow, and the modding support and the other changes in this patch are a good step in the right direction, but we haven't arrived. At least I don't feel like we have. If you do, I'm interested to hear your thoughts and feedback on the new patch and what else you think should be added to the game. What are the key things that are important to you? Put that in the comments below this video. That would be great. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, I'm Mal, and I will see you later.